This match is a ripoff of an indie game! Do I have your attention? Well, I was joking, but listen to this. There's a game called Mission It's Complicated. It's about you running and dispatching a group of heroes to missions. During those missions, you have to make choices for them that will determine their success. It's almost exactly the same gameplay loop as Dispatch. The difference is that Mission It's Complicated is about you trying to get those heroes to, smooch. Yeah, don't ask. Better yet, go play it. It's pretty fun and free. Sorry, that's not what this video is about. I was just shocked nobody had caught that yet, and it's been rattling around in my brain for a while now, so I just had to share it. Okay, let's try this again. Hey, it's me, Jesse C. And have you been enjoying Dispatch? Great, we're about to shit it. I'm kidding, put the pitchforks down. But after the last episode batch, I have to admit, I ended up whelmed. And honestly, the more I think about the game, the more I think it's kind of a mess. Still, there is a lot to love it, and people have very good reasons to do it. I think it caught a lot of us off guard with how high quality it is. I mean, it looks like a Netflix animated series, right? It's not reinventing the Telltale interactive narrative wheel, but it is also mixing it with a novel new type of gameplay that is outside the point-and-click adventure style game framework that those games used to follow. So yeah, plenty to like about it. The designs, the delivery, the songs, the minigame, and so on. Like Robert's a Bitch is a hood classic now. But we ain't about that today, okay? In the sea of glazing, I shall be the one. Not because you need me to be that, but because I need to vent, okay? And you are the unsuspecting target of my choice. Now, I'm not trying to shit on anyone's cake, okay? This is my opinion. We can have different opinions on art and still get along despite what the internet will have you believe. So let's start with the most important criticism for me. The reason why the ending whelmed me and felt kind of flat. The story is extremely unfocused. It's about the Phoenix team learning to be heroes, but it's about whatever the hell is going on with Invisigal. But it's also about Robert going back to being Mega Man, but it's also romance, and there's also a revenge story, and also Robert's dad was a gutful. There are too many concepts here that all fight for the spotlight in a game that already has a pretty short run time. And the result is that they are all underserved and not explored properly. Not to mention, generally kind of don't resolve in a very satisfying way to me. I would have preferred to focus on a single one of these plotlines this season while painting ideas from the others in the background to then pick up on later seasons. Robert going back to being Mega Man should have taken a backseat this season so that we could focus on the Phoenix team. The name of the game is Dispatch after all, right? So why so quick to make the man mecha again? Would have preferred a focused ending that was more about supporting the Phoenix team like in those Invisigal sections than just have Robert fighting, you know? But as it stands, they wanted to resolve everything here, probably because they didn't know a sequel would even be in the cards. But the result of that is that nothing really clicked. Some things landed with a flop, others with a thud, but none with a bang. Feel me? Let's go through those plot lines. Robert's dad subplot has no impact because we don't even get a scene with him and his dad to get emotionally invested. Like apparently his dad sucked and Shroud killed him. Like okay? And where's the arc? Where's the pathos? Where's literally anything to make this compelling? Remove this from the game and tell me if it really makes a difference. There's no exploration of why his dad was like that or how his relationship affected Robert or anything really. Like the most we get is that flashback with Chase, but that's like more about Chase than anything. Like we know Robert feels some amount of resentment, but clearly he also cares, and we are shown that his dad was a hero that impacted people for better or worse. And that's it! Nothing is done or said with this. Robert doesn't even get closure on it. And that's fine, it's just that with how often it comes up, the whole concept of legacy, and how other characters talk about it all the time, and how Robert seems to talk about it all the time, and how it's related to Shroud and stuff, you'd expect there to be more? But again, with most things with Dispatch, as we will see, they mostly aren't bad, although there are some very bad things, they're just disappointing. Or mid. Shroud is just kind of there. He's an asshole and fuck Robert's legacy and his mecha, which is fine, he's menacing and drives the plot, but that's kind of it. The most compelling thing about him is the idea of him trying to remove choice by trying to make a machine that always makes the right decision, which is awesome. Like, this is a perfect idea for a villain in a game about making choices. Except nothing is really done with this. It's only brought up in the 11th hour and not really expanded upon in any meaningful way. Don't get me wrong, beating him by forcing him to make a choice is pretty clever from a conceptual and writing standpoint. The guy too afraid to make choices has to make one, and because he isn't ready to deal with that responsibility yet, he f***ed it up. Great, awesome, very topical even. Shroud is like that guy that relies a little bit too much on ChatGPT, you know? The moment it's gone, he just doesn't know what to do with himself. And to the game's credit, I think the narrative does try to revolve around the choices people make to have redemption be possible, which rely on the choices made by both the wronged and the wrongers. The villains, you get it. Except the idea loses all impact because this game doesn't really have choices and or mistakes to be made. We'll get more on this later, but you basically have no influence over the plot, and it's kind of insane. I also think that this concept on a more narrative level didn't stick with me and felt like it came out of the blue is because the story never really gets into why Shroud's obsessed with eliminating choice, or why the Phoenix team themselves make the choices they do. Courtney being the exception, of course. It works, but they could have done more to really sell these ideas. Kinda just disappointing. Are you sensing a theme yet? Alright, moving on. The Phoenix team, trying to be heroes. The arc here is that they are bad at it, then Robert does a speech, and they flip the end. Like, we don't get any insight into their personal motivations to be heroes or villains, and how or why they would have a change of heart in any direction. It's just, hey, want to stop being losers and get a pardon? Then stop f***ing around and that's it. Not exactly emotionally impactful stuff. Okay, so what about Robert's own arc? His arc is actually weird. So Robert gave everything to be a hero and was left with nothing. He sacrificed body, personal life, and fortune, and he did it all alone without support. But with the dispatch team, he finally has people on his side to pick up and support him. The apartment party shows his exemplary. This works and it's pretty good, but not great. It's missing something. Why did he even feel the need to do it alone in the first place? Because he feels alone? Because his dad did it alone? Why? I can speculate on it, but at that point stop feeling like I'm interpreting the game and more like I'm doing a creative writing prompt from it. And sometimes it also feels like the story is pushing in a direction of Robert realizing that he doesn't need the suit to do good, that he is a hero even without the suit, but then it just gives him the suit back again, so it's like, I don't know. The story is also further diluted by the fact that what even is Robert's motivation? It's actually up to the player as a choice in the first episode, yet whatever you choose is never brought back to conclude the story in a satisfying way. A better game would have gone back to get why you told Blonde Blazer you are a hero and try to work something here via conversation during the apartment party or something to tie this plot thread together. Like if you choose his motivation to be helping people, maybe have him realize that in his obsession he forgot he's people too. I don't know anything to just tie it up and also respect the player's choices. His arc, much like a lot of the other plotlines in this game, is just missing that thing to take it further into something truly great. It ends up feeling more like a draft than a complete work, lacking connective tissue between thematic elements to bring them home. How about Blonde Blazer, whose whole internal conflict is in a fucking extra comic that comes with the deluxe edition. They hint they will get into it in the game with the whole who do you prefer, Mandy or Blazer choice, but yeah, it never does. There's no closure to her arc. It just starts and that's it. This feels like half a game. There's so much missing everywhere, which makes sense when you learn that this game's funding was actually pulled and Critical Role saved it by coming in and being like, hey, we're just gonna fund you and you guys can finish that. Clearly they cut a lot of shit. The choices don't have consequence. The narrative's missing a bunch of shit. Closure to the arcs. Context for the arcs. It truly is just a bare bones here. IO ideas and concepts just scattered around that go nowhere. Like this is first draft shit. Or shit that was cut. That's my problem. Still, even with the chaotic development of the game, which is very understandable and contextualizes a bunch of the problems of the game, they still also made just a bunch of bad choices. Like for example, the fact that they focus so much on Invisigal, despite the fact that they set up a bunch of other stuff. She's the only one you guide in battles. The only character arc we have is hers. Most of the choices are about her. It's Courtney all the way down. Aside from maybe like Flambe, he has some scenes and decisions about him, but it's all jokes, and his whole issue with Robert is also resolved with a joke. We don't have an Invisigal on the playground moment with him, where we see this internal struggle that he has, find out more about him, and then we can have a genuine heart-to-heart. No, we just get a joke. A funny one, but still just a joke. Underwhelming compared to what Invisi gets. I usually don't like the term, but man, Invisigal really is the writer's pet. But okay, I hear some people say, well, that's the story they wanted to tell. It's her story. But then I have to rebuke with, then why did they make it a team of recovering villains then? Why did they place other plot threads without covering them or properly developing them? Like, they make choices here narratively and conceptually that they just don't engage with. If their intention was to just focus on Invisigal, then the setup of the story, to my mind, should have been different. Because otherwise, it just feels very disappointing to not have all these other things developed. Look, Invisigal's initial arc is great. She fails to catch a bad guy, you have a fallout, then bond, and then she gets the bad guy, great, hooray, perfect. But then it just keeps going. It would have been way better to shift the attention after that to another member of the Phoenix team, so we can then work on them. From the players' reactions to the other characters, everyone was looking forward to getting to know the rest of the team, but it just doesn't happen, and it's a massive missed opportunity. Put it this way, it's also an incompetent narrative choice, considering she's already a romance option, meaning she will already naturally have more screen time. time. Except that even the other romance option doesn't even get as much attention as her. Okay, let's talk about the choices. Or I should say, what choices? You don't really have any. The game's story doesn't actually branch meaningfully like at all. Most of the choices have practically no consequence or effect. Now, this is an old criticism of most Telltale and similar games, and with ad hoc being made by previous Telltale employees, you'd think they would have learned something from the past, right? Now listen, if you don't care about this sort of criticism, hear me out, because I actually generally also don't, but there's a point I want to make here. Considering the big choices, not just the dialogue options, the game has three types of choices. Ones that are completely and utterly inconsequential, like revealing you are a mech command to the team or not, makes absolutely no difference, you are revealed regardless. Same for the post decision, the Invisi heist at the party, your speech to the team, throwing a chair at Golan, the Shroud kill or spare promise, and so on. There are those choices that have extremely minor changes to the game, fist bumping Royd, kissing Blazer, throwing acid dick out the window, what you throw at Fanbei, etc. And then we have the final type that are the choices that actually do change shit a lot. Now, two of these are actually branching paths related to more than one choice, so I'm just lumping those small accruing choices as one big choice here, okay? So these are the game's four big choices. First, who you choose to romance. Second, whether Invisi ends as a hero or a villain. Third, who you cut from the team. And four, who you hire after. There's an added problem with those two last choices. They literally just end as cosmetic differences because otherwise their outcomes narratively are exactly the same. There is no difference. Coupe and Sonar might as well be the same person considering that after they are cut, they do exactly the same thing. I guess it's cool that we have different fights aesthetically, but consider this. Wouldn't it have been much better if they settled on one of these guys always being kicked out instead of creating two different but narratively identical boss fights? Why would it be better? Well, because the money and effort they would save on that, they could then use to shore up those other areas of the game that are lacking. Like all the shit we just talked about with the plot and all the shit that they cut out that would be sorely needed. Like the sex scenes. Everybody wanted those. Or flashbacks to Robert's dad. I don't know. Important stuff, you know? But most importantly, the point I wanted to paint, the thing I keep coming back to is this. Why are these choices? Consider who you choose to hire. Both end up fighting in the grand final battle, so why is it a choice? I like the scene where either Phenomenon or Waterboy answer the call of duty when things are dire and all options are exhausted. It's a good, very heroic moment for two characters that are down on their luck. And it really fits. But still, why make it a choice instead of choosing one to always be hired or just both? These choices kind of feel forced to me. Who to cut is, emotionally speaking, a nothing burger for one. By that point, you might as well just close your eyes and pick at random. You have no time to interact with these guys. You don't know them at all, so why would you even care? There's no connection, there's no impact. Might as well kick the literal hired killer, why wouldn't you? Even in-world, the justification feels kind of forced. It's such a bizarre decision to kick someone off right after the team morale improves and they get their first win under new leadership. The game tries to justify all of this saying, oh, it's a set example, set stakes, that they have been foundering for too long, that, you know, blah blah blah. But it's such a weak justification that does nothing narratively. Even when these characters return as villains, what's the point being made? What's the arc? Does the agency or Blonde Blazer learn anything from this? Does this review or resolve any character flaw or systemic problem? Does this tie in any way to the character conflict of Sonar or Coupe? No, it really doesn't. I guess it does tie into the point of redemption because of the last choice regarding whoever you cut. After whoever you cut has destroyed most of the city for an extremely petty reason, they can be offered an immediate pardon. Because the Phoenix team likes them, not because they deserve it, or showed remorse, or flipped at the last moment, or anything. Redemption requires accountability, which is something that this game seems to not want to reckon with. And so many people have a problem with Invisi's arc and this one because of this. It's not that they missed the point of the narrative, it's that the narrative missed a key part of rehabilitation. Remorse and accountability, which is something the characters don't really show. At most, what you can say about these choices is that they thematically represent who in our system gets to be uplifted, which is essentially only the people who get the opportunity and the support, which is a bit of what the game's getting at, but again, there is something missing here, like maybe a scene where whoever you hired was paying it forward to whoever you didn't, or actually indeed leaving whoever wasn't hired out to dry to show the unfairness of it. Again, I don't know anything! I wasn't writing this! In fact, both of these guys coming back to fight you doesn't even make sense because they both have former lovers or friends on the team that they are over by trying to get revenge, even though those guys that they like aren't responsible for them being cut, so like, it's just weird. It truly just feels like the devs wanted or needed a choice here and just went for the old grab bag of choice-based games, a choice between two people for contrived reasons. And the other choice between Waterboy and Phenomenon makes more sense in the world. One spot open, now they want to fill it. Okay, but still, why did the devs want this to be a choice in the first place? I generally don't know. The only good reason I can think of for these being choices is that they shuffled the roster for the dispatch minigame section, which I guess is cool, I guess. Narratively, I don't see the sense in them, and they feel like a little bit of wasted effort that they could have placed in other areas of the game that sorely needed it. Okay, so I don't think these should have been choices, made that pretty clear. So what in my opinion would be good choices instead of these? Can't rightly complain and offer no solution, right? Well, why not make your relationship with the Z team actually matter? You know, that thing that the game pretends matters, that it gives you choices and speeches about but doesn't actually engage with? You know, the team whose relationship you thought might be ruined if you kept antagonizing Flambe, or not trusting them with your secret identity, or if you didn't kick Invisigal like they wanted, or if you kept talking down to them, or any other number of choices in this game that actually have no effect on the team. You know, that thing that should matter but doesn't? The team fights with you and are functional and victorious at the end no matter what. Wouldn't it be wiser to spend the budget here by making a branching choice where Robert and the Z team are too dysfunctional to work during the final battle? But it is worth saying, it's boring to make a choice be obviously the right and correct heroic choice, and obviously bad dumb choice that will make you fail. Unless you do the disco. The Ravachol Boogie, the hairy histamine, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Disco Illusion does a bunch of things to make failure feel kind of great. It's thematically resonant. Harry is a failure and so are you, which makes the plot resonate with you more as you're steeped more and more into the detective and the world's own failures. It's fun, some of the failures are just straight up funny. Third, it offers you many ways to succeed, which means failure isn't a roadblock, it just means you should change tacks. And fourth, it lets you fall forward by making failure not a stop to progress, but a way to galvanize further conflict and push things forward, which is a concept in a lot of TTRPGs. So I think if the game did add a type of failure state with the Z team, it should do something like that, where it's a route that more allows you to grapple and overcome those failures at the last moment, rather than just having you straight up fail. Cause like, otherwise people will avoid that route like the plague, and that's kind of boring. Like, truth be told, when you're playing one of these games, it's pretty obvious which is the correct choice all the time, right? Just make the heroic choice, the narrative's arc bends to justice, right? So why even add a choice that's clearly the bad one, and the consequence of that will be the bad one, and then like, that's it. You just are left with a save that in a story that kind of sucks. So that's why I think that route should just make things more complicated. Do have some, you know, costs to failure, like when they grapple and overcome with their failure at the last moment, like do something heroic that has a high cost for Robert, with an admission of having done wrong by the team, that eventually galvanizes the disgruntled Z team into actually doing better, but also keeps more or less the same route, which cuts on costs, which is important in games like this, and you only have so much budget, right? But it also gives a cost for your failure. It doesn't just wipe the board clean by giving you a Deus Ex Machina right at the end, right? The Z team essentially should work, in my mind, like Invisigal's redemption seems to work, as far as I could figure. Because, in case you don't know, Invisigal's redemption seems to be tied to a bunch of choices, so I think that's how the Z team's redemption should work. But talking about Invisigal, let's talk about her whole deal and why it kind of sucks ass. So, whether Courtney becomes a hero or villain in the end depends on your decisions regarding her throughout the game. And that is a pretty cool way of doing it. That means that the choices matter, if not that much by themselves, but in the grand scheme of things. This is pretty cool. After all, her personal drama is also a microcosm of the Z team's redemption narrative. So it also allows us to engage with who deserves redemption, who's a hero or a villain, the hypocrisy of championing redemption when you weren't the target of the evil that people did, etc. Like, I love Robert's response if you forgive her for what she did to him when she reveals it. It's exactly it. Granted, I still think if you're going to make a game about a team of characters, you should probably, I don't know, use those characters, spread those concepts throughout the team, and showcase them in each of their own little arcs every episode, instead of overloading all of them in one character's arc. But fine, they chose her, whatever. So this all sounds great, right? Yeah, well, they Okay, let's talk about the sexual harassment thing for a second. There is a kiss that can trigger in the locker room with Visi that was changed. That kiss would happen depending on a score that game kept that gauged Robert's interest in Invisigal. The number used to be 5, which meant if you were slightly nice to her, she'd sexually assault you. The number, as of a recent patch, has been doubled, so clearly the intent of the writers is for the scene only to be seen if you're actively pursuing Courtney. They didn't actually want to make this a sexual harassment thing, which is great and the right way to do this. This video used to have a really lengthy section about how it was actually sexual harassment, because a lot of people weren't even recognizing that, how people's defense of the scene was gross, and I would, also debunk a bunch of the arguments people were using to defend the scene, which were honestly fucking insane. How it was handled in frame was also really gross, and a bunch of other stuff, but considering it was clearly a mistake and not intentional, I felt appropriate to remove the section and help inform people of how that kiss triggers. Mind you, I think Invisigal is still, in general, very gross on how she approaches Robert in general, and it's stupid that the game doesn't give you an option to properly point that out, but whatever, I'm honestly glad not to have to address a thing that honestly hits a bit too close to home for me. And I'm glad that it was changed, so if the narration seems a little pissed after this, it's because of that. I was hiding the bile high. Okay, so at the end we have the reveal that Invisi's been a mole this whole time, which on one hand would explain her trying to fucking kill Robert if he doesn't release her, but also Shroud is a liar because he lies about who killed your dad according to the fucking extra comic that shows how Robert's dad was killed, which doesn't match what fucking Shroud says, so... But also, if it was a lie, why didn't she even try to argue? Isn't her reaction just weird for something that's supposed to be a lie? But if it wasn't, why did she go for the Astral Pulse? Except maybe she was trying to double-cross Shroud like he suspected? However, she does come back with it, so maybe she was being honest? The most likely scenario to me is that she was working for Shroud for a bit, but then became genuinely involved with the team because of Robert and all, and then only truly made her decision to where she was going to land in the rooftop scene. Except that is not without holes either, because then why wouldn't she tell the full truth during the locker room confession? Because she's a mess and untrustworthy, I guess? This plot's such a fucking mess, man. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe I'm just stupid, but it's hard to be invested when something's this convoluted. But that then brings into question the hero ending, when she gets called a hero and Blazer apologizes for doubting her, which I'll feel insane upon the revelation that she was a mole, and that scene is the combination of why Invisi's arc incenses people. Look, I see so many people calling out anyone that criticizes Invisi as missing the point of the game, but people who say that are missing why the arc didn't land with people. Take my run for example. I stood by her every single time in the game, except I failed to help her get the Astral Pulse, cause I f***ed up one of the minigames, my bad. Kicked her out of the team, cause there should be consequences to some of the stuff that you do. You can't willfully endanger people just because you have her complex and you need to be seen as a hero. And I also left her chain, because, come on. That's just... And she ended up as a villain in my playthrough. And then, the game has the audacity, the chutzpah, the gall to tell me I neglected her? Fuck off! Courtney needs not 1, not 2, not 3, but fucking 4 second chances. 5th chance, I guess. Whatever. But hero or not, maybe, just maybe, at some point, it's her fault, and I'm not responsible for this. Chase may have been an asshole, but turns out he had a pretty good point. Positive reinforcement's an underrated and important part of teaching, and for all intents and purposes, Robert is, as the game points out, Invisigal's mentor, so he should encourage her like in the swing scene. But if you're unconditionally supportive, you just become an enabler. And if you can't see how that is the game's perspective via the narrative, we can look under the hood at the mentor score it keeps track of, and it reveals something very clearly, that you should never hold Invisigal accountable. That is the bizarre idea of what being a good mentor that this game has. So what's the lesson, Invisi guys, gals, and pals? Is that to become a good person, a bad person just needs unconditional support, infinite second chances, and no repercussions for any of their actions? Yeah, apparently. Sounds healthy. And you wanna know another thing that pisses me off about the devs? Since we're dishing, might as well keep that energy going. Any questions about the romances were answered like this during the release of the game. Bro, how is a question about what kind of fucking content is in your game a fucking spoiler? You keeping the genre a secret now too, bitch? Is your game hack and slash or strategy? Oh, I can't answer that because all plans have been laid. Any answer would be a spoiler. You want to avoid all spoilers? How about you not make trailers for the game? Make a completely black Steam page with nothing and no title to your game. Wouldn't want to spoil that you are a dispatcher in the dispatch game. You know what? Don't even make a game. Can't spoil what doesn't exist. I'm sorry, but this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. I hate this culture we've formed around media where everything is a fucking spoiler. Like, what would answering that question spoil? Like, what? It would spoil you that no, there isn't any, and you shouldn't hold out hope. Oh, guys, I've been spoiled. I've been robbed of the chance to be disappointed. They should have just said from the get-go, hey guys, only true romance options available in this one, and they're both straight. there, done, donezo. People would be able to set their expectations accordingly. Instead, people spend like 4 weeks huffing copium and being deluded about this game having everybody be romanceable. Jesus Christ. Ah, stupid ass. What a dumb way to artificially keep interest in your game, man. Just be honest about what the shit is in the game. All that answer did is disappoint a bunch of queer people, and just because they're already very accustomed to disappointment from everybody around them, doesn't mean you should do it. Okay. Climbing down from that energy. So, does it even matter that the story doesn't change? I've never cared for the choices on meta criticism, mostly because I thought it was overblown. But there is a real question that it raises. If decisions don't matter, then why is this a game, since that's one of the main gameplay parts of it? Why isn't this just a series? Well, the reason for that is that decisions do matter, it's just not the big ones that do. I think people sleep on the satisfaction from small choices and their small effects. In Telltale games, the criticism always felt like it came from people wanting consequences for every single choice in the game. There is a real satisfaction in minor choices with immediate effects, though a good game has both the big ones and the small ones, like for example Fallout New Vegas. That was even kind of their design philosophy. Choices have an immediate and observable effects, and also choices that have long-term narrative effects, and in slides and so on, you know? But the sole obsession with big choices leads devs to, I think, force choices for no good narrative reason. So that's why I and others still get a kick of interactive games like this, and why a lot of people still like this patch even if they find out that it doesn't actually change the story that much, the shit you choose. It's just fun to go through dialogue choices, having whatever reaction you want to stuff. It lets you roleplay, be immersed, and be part of crafting the narrative. And there are really good small choices in this patch, like beating the shit out of the reporter, or the flambe eyebrow thing, and so on. So roleplaying a particular personality or relationship or reaction your character has to other characters or the world, dictating how a conversation goes, it is all just as satisfying, if not more at times, than big branching choices. They can also be used in great narrative ways. For example, the donut thing. Invisigal getting you your favorite donut is super effective to sell the character to you initially. Shows that she cares. It's a small thing, but it's still a thing, you know? But the effectiveness of minor choices is also why I don't understand why these games usually don't double down on them. So this gets us to my hot take. And hear me out, I know people get really defensive and incensed about this for some reason, but just hear me out. How do you double down on small choices? Get rid of Robert and make the main character custom. Listen, I'll go for my logic, but you have to stay with me here, okay? Don't go to the comments! Don't leave me! But think about it. Having a custom character does a number of things. It gives the writers more freedom in writing dialogue options. Robert, even as a supposed quote-unquote everyman, whatever the fuck that even is supposed to mean, he is a guy with a personality. So he comes preloaded with stuff. The way he dresses, the way he styles his hair, the way he jokes, the way he talks. That makes the variations of responses he has in these smaller moments not actually be that varied. They are all kind of similar in tone and content. And that's counterintuitive to our goal, right? If the idea is to make the small choices pop and be satisfying, then they shouldn't be samey. They should be different, interesting. But we are limited on our choices because of Robert. But counterintuitively, Robert isn't actually a guy with a personality, is he? Because if he is, why do we get to choose for him? We talked about this a little before with the whole Invisigal thing. We can choose Robert's entire motivation to be a hero. We can choose who he's attracted to. We can choose his morality. So why are we acting like this guy's sacred and set in stone when by virtue of the game he is in, he isn't? Some things about him are said, like being a hero or being Mecha Man, but that's about it. None of that conflicts with making him more customizable. Is being able to change his reason for being a hero the core of his character, not a deeper thing to change than something more performative like gender or personality? Yet we can change the former, not the latter. And if you truly think I'm wrong about this, then there are a couple of questions you have to answer. Number one, why is this a choice-based game? If this is Robert's story and he is his own character, not an avatar for the player in any way, why is this not a linear game or just a series? Unless you are prepared to tie the permutations of the story to the narrative, like, say, with a narrative about accepting or denying grief, where you're showcasing what happens one way or the other, then that's just kind of like, it should just be a narrative that doesn't have choices. You know what I mean? With this patch, and a lot of games like it, when I see the story of the game and how people talk about the game, practically ignoring how the main characters can make different choices to talk about canon or how the character is or thinks, I just find myself thinking, why is this an interactive narrative if everyone ignores the interactive part of it? Number two, what are the parameters for what is supposed to be a thing that is intrinsic to Robert's character and what isn't? The answer is quite literally just the whims of the writers. So at the same time that his character does restrict us, it's also fluid enough to allow us to mode it to a degree just by virtue of the type of game this is. And for these reasons, it feels like these types of games are held back by pre-made characters conceptually. There's also a couple of other drawbacks. This is a bit subjective and maybe more just a me thing, but I always found an incongruence in games with choice-based narrative that also have entirely pre-made characters. Talking about games like The Witcher, for example. Some choices those games offer for your characters just don't fit who the characters are. So there's this pool of one not to make out of character decisions, but that goes in conflict with the freedom of this game's supposed to let you choose your own thing. Not to mention how weird it is when you make those choices and the game in other scenes treats a character in a way that is completely against how you've been playing them because they're taking into character how the character is supposed to be, which happens in Dispatch. It feels like characters react more to who the writers think Robert is rather than who the player has made Robert into. Hell, they push Invisigal on you so hard regardless of how much you don't want to. Oh, while we're on this, completely apropos of nothing, can y'all lengthen the answer time? I'm old and I can't read 3 sentences and choose between them that fast, are you kidding me? The custom character thing just feels like such a shoe-in for games with interactive narratives that I'm just frankly surprised that more games don't do that. All of this to say, I think narrative games are overwhelmingly better served by customizable characters. Mind you, I know some people don't quite like completely blank slate characters, but that's not what I'm arguing for. You can still set parameters in which the customizable character is created. Think Shepard from Mass Effect or Beastry's Dirge. They are customizable, but with certain immutable traits for the story to engage with. This serves a narrative while allowing space for personal choices for people, like gender, appearance, or whatever other type of stuff, you get it. Let's talk about the Dispatch minigame. It's actually really good. No real complaints about the minigame mechanically either, aside from that stupid auto-fail thing, like why? Who thought that was a good idea? Oh yeah, let's put that in the game, right as all your characters are massively leveled up, making it impossible to send a character with a good attribute in a mission that needs it because it will auto-fail otherwise. Christ. You could maybe make this work if it wasn't the game from the start, maybe. Aside from that minor thing, I think it's lots of fun. It's well integrated into the pace and the narrative. It shows heroes saving people, or implies it at any rate, which is something the narrative sorely lacks and needs. I don't understand how we keep making superhero stories where the superheroes don't actually do heroic things and save people. Like, there's nobody who gets saved in Dispatch. What the fuck? It also allows for the Phoenix Tin to be somewhat developed by their dialogue in it. Like, most of the shit you know and like about those characters aside from Invisigal didn't come from cutscenes, but from this part of the game, which is cool, but also it's a bandage to a problem that the rest of the game has. But hey, it's something at least, and it's something that's very clever at that. I will give it to the game. My problem with it is actually how secluded it is from the other part of the game. Nothing you do here affects the narrative. None of the missions you complete and the choices you make inside the minigames have a bearing outside of it. You could literally not play the minigame at all and nothing would change. The only thing it does is that if you don't beat who you fire during the LA battle, you can't choose to forgive them, which I guess is something, but wouldn't it be cooler if, I don't know, the people you saved during those missions throughout the game aim to help out the Phoenix team during the crisis or something? Seeing people pay back the team's kindness would be really cool, and also a really important moment to cement to them what it means to be a hero and being part of kindness and all that mushy stuff. But no, nothing in that minigame really matters at all. Hell, even if you fail to save LA, there is no difference at the end. It's not like the city is shown to be more destroyed or anything, except actually Invisigal's counter for redemption also is affected by the Dispatch missions. Every mission you complete with her, she gains a point, and if you send her for training, she gains 5 points. You can gain 36 points by always signing with Invisigal, but from that you still are gonna need like 9 points from the Dispatch minigame to get her heroic ending. So you're gonna need to send her on a bunch of Dispatch missions, which I hate that the game doesn't inform you in any way of that. You have no way of knowing that, and if you have prioritized other heroes for one reason or another, then you're fucked. You're gonna get the villain ending, and there was no way of you knowing any of that, which I don't think is that great. It makes the minigame matter, but not in a way that makes you interact with it. It's just like it feels like a random thing when you find out about this. Because nothing else about the minigame ever matters, why would you assume this specific thing matters? Okay, let's finish off with a lighter topic. The comedy! It's highly subjective, but man, this game can be painfully unfunny. It can also be funny, but it can be really painfully unfunny. It's just obvious shit a lot of the time. Look, there's an arm guy. His deal is that he has tiny arms and he's obsessed with arms. There's Water Boy. His deal is that he pukes water, and that's the joke that he'll keep doing every time he's on screen. Hey, there's a small strong man. He punches dicks cause they are the eyesight. Hilarious. The worst part of the punch-up thing is that they have the perfect setup with the naked acid guy to have his dangling bits dangling, then meet him punch up in the last battle, and it's like, it's perfect, but the execution just doesn't land. I don't know, man, I just feel like they can do a lot better. Like, Robert trying to type Phenomenon is fucking funny and clever. Phenomenon eating melon arrangements, not so much. And I'm not saying I want it all to be highbrow either. The listen to the wind bit is really funny, clever, in character, comes at the right moment. But there's a lot of jokes in this game that don't come at the right moment. In fact, it's the opposite. They do the Thor movies thing, where they ruin dramatic parts with lame jokes. Like, please, writers, stop ruining the mood. Let dramatic moments just fucking breathe. God, that's it. I wash my hands of this game. See you later. Darkseid, you are part of God's plan. Light cannot exist without the dark. And Darkseid's like, I don't want to be a part of God's plan. I want to kill. Diana lost her people, the Amazons, and is raised in hell alone. Superman never gets to have his Kansas childhood, being forced to see his family and planet die and coming to Earth already as a teen. And Bruce? Well, they took away his money. I know he really got the short end of the stick there.